Well, good evening. Welcome along to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith, and today's special guest is Darren Jackson. How are you, Darren?
I'm brilliant, Steve. Obviously, you're a little ahead of the game down there with lockdown, but we've still got issues up here, and none of the pubs are open, or only the few of the shops are open. So we're still on a bit semi-lockdown, but it's been fine. It's been okay.
Yeah, well, that's good, mate. As long as you're managing to keep fit and keep yourself sane, I think that's all you can really do. And hopefully we'll get back to some kind of normality sooner rather than later. Been an interesting week because I've had a few of your former colleagues on the show. I've had Rob McDonald on, we've had Mirandinha on, people who played in the same era as you. Tell us about how you first came to sign for Newcastle United.
Well, I was playing for Meadowbank Thistle, and I got a phone call from Terry Christie, the manager, and said, we've accepted a bid from Newcastle. It was a Tuesday. We've accepted a bid from Newcastle. We're going down to Coldstream, to one of the directors' houses that night to sort the deal out. And obviously there was never going to be any problem. It was Mr. Forbes' house, and we drove down, signed it. As I say, there was no agents then, and there were agents then, but I didn't have an agent. And Terry Christie, the manager, did the deal for me, and that was it. And I tell a story, Steve, that I played for Meadowbank Thistle against Cowdenbeath at Station Park. Now, anybody that doesn't know Station Park, they have the car rallies. You have to be, when they play the games, you have to be out by right after the game. So they have the car rally. That's their main income.
Yeah.
And so I played there on one Saturday in front of 300 people, and the following Saturday I played against Arsenal at St James's in front of 35,000.
Wow.
Tony Adams, Rocastle, Michael Thomas. I mean, the real good side. So it was a little bit different. 300 people to 35,000. Incredible Geordies.
What was your first impression of the crowd and St James's Park as a ground?
Well, I'd never been, Steve, and I went into the game and went in the dressing room. Willie McFall went in the dressing room, and Peter Beardsley actually took me and showed me around the stadium and onto the pitch and all that. And then I sat in the team talk, and I'm thinking, I knew Peter Beardsley. I tell you truthfully, I didn't really know a lot of the other players. Yeah. And I didn't know this young kid that the manager was going to have his actually team talk about. And it was just about Gazza. Gazza, yeah, and Gazza this, and yeah, Gazza do that, and I'm thinking, who's this? And then when the game started, I realised that there's someone special here, and obviously Peter and the rest of the boys, Glenn, John Anderson, Kenny Wharton, Michael, Martin Thomas in goals, Dave McCreary, Ian Stewart, who I really got really friendly with because we lived just beside each other. We used to travel together, and Tony Cunningham, it was Neil McDonald, Paul Stevenson. I can go on. It was amazing, Steve. I've got to say honestly, and I'm not saying that because I'm on this with you. And it was just for a young guy who's only played part time to come down and play in a stadium like this in front of fans like that. It's dreams come true, and it's a statement that people say it was a dream come true. It was a dream come true.
We've seen players over the years, I certainly have as a fan, who've crumbled under the atmosphere. Did you buzz off the atmosphere, or did you feel the pressure at first?
Well, you feel. Listen, you need the pressure. You need that to. But I played I obviously. Moving on, when I came back, I had 2 years and I came back, and people saying that no really work out for you. I played something like 78 games in 2 years as a 19-year-old, coming down and playing in the top flight in England, going to Anfield and going to Old Trafford and going to White Hart Lane, going to Highbury. I played at Highbury 3 times, never lost. Do you know what I mean? So I would like to think Willie McFall had loads of faith in me, and I think I did quite well. So I did thrive in it. I've always kind of thrived on the sort of, I'm not saying the big occasions, but just the crowd and just the buzz and expectations. Because listen, there is expectations at Newcastle because the fans demand it. To be truthful, they demand that you just give everything every single week. That's obviously they've not won anything for a long time, and it's heartbreaking for the club, for the town, for the fans. But it was just, honestly, it was an honour. It was just, I loved every single minute of it. And I came back when I saw you. When I came back, and I came down with Karen, my girlfriend, and to the Huddersfield game, and the taxi driver actually pulled up right outside the ground, and this is honest truth, it pulled up right where the day I left, I sat outside the ground, and I'll be truthful, I broke my heart. Wow. Because I was leaving. I was going to Dundee United. Jim Smith came in and just said, I need money, I'm sorry, I'm not really wanting to lose you, but I need money. And I was fine, just went back up the road. But I sat outside. It was amazing how the taxi driver just pulled outside that actual spot, and I just sat and broke my heart.
Mark Corby runs a page called 1980-1994 NUFC, concentrates on the era that you and so many other great players played. He's asked quite a few questions, and one of them was, do you think Willie McFall would have got it right at Newcastle if he'd been given a bit more time?
Well, it's easy to say now. Do you know what I mean? Hindsight's a great thing, but I think he signed good players. I mean, I'm going to be biased. John Robertson, who he brought down, Robbo was just a goal scorer. He just needed a goal. Dave Besant did really well. Andy Thorne did really well. John Hendry did really well in his career, wherever they went. So yes, I think Willie Suggy was the kind of tactical coach then, with John Pickering, who obviously sadly died a few years ago, who was a wonderful coach. Willie was brilliant man management, and he just, the way he treated his players, the way everybody, again, people think I just cry all the time, but I broke my heart when Willie left, because obviously he signed me, and he was an amazing man, and he was a good manager. And as I say, hindsight's always it might have kicked on. I do think he would have got it right, yes.
That's fair enough. He also asked, which we just touched on a little bit, about Jim Smith. Obviously, he needed money to buy players when he came in. So he just said, how disappointed were you when, he said that you were surplus to requirements because he needed to bring money in?
I mean, at the time, I was just a young boy. I was 21. And stupidly, nowadays, you probably have advisors saying, maybe it's no, just sit there just now. Someone else might come in England, things might change. But I think he had a good relationship with Jim McLean. And Jim McLean tried to sign me a couple of times. And he had a good relationship with him, and he just says, listen, I need money. He did it to be, obviously, John Robertson the week before, going back to Hearts. And he just said, and I was obviously broken-hearted that I was leaving, but as I say, he needed money, and he was dead truthful. There was no issues. So it happened, and do I have regrets? I don't really have regrets in my career, but I would have loved to have stayed longer, yes.
I'll give Mark one last question. He said, you played up front, you played midfield, and you played right back at one stage. What do you consider your best position at Newcastle United?
No right back, Steve. I played right back at Anfield.
Yeah.
When we beat them 2-1.
Yeah.
John Henry and Mirror scored. Gary Gillespie scored after 4 minutes. And before that game, John Barnes, I had a fitness test, and John Barnes had a fitness test. So obviously I was playing right back and he'd be playing left mid.
Yeah.
And he failed his fitness test, so it made it a lot easier for me to pass. And I'm not 100% sure, but I think Steve Staunton made his debut that day. I think so. And he got taken off, so I did okay, but definitely no. I wasn't. I couldn't defend for my life, even when I loved playing in midfield and I loved playing up front. It didn't matter to me. And it wasn't a case of, I just wanted to be in the team. It's through my whole career. I love being I think I scored something like 131 goals. I wasn't a natural goal scorer because I wanted to take part in the game all the time. And don't take this out of context. Probably a bit like Peter. Peter Beardsley did so much work for everybody else and created so many goals. If Peter had probably been a little bit more selfish, Peter would have scored a lot more goals with his ability and his massive talent.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Next question is from Chris Finley, Toon Boy on Twitter. He says, we always get bizarre ones, so be prepared. Can you ask him if he has a cousin called Steph? I can't remember his surname. I went to school with a kid in Ayr who claimed Darren was his cousin, but I was always sceptical.
Unfortunately not.
That's cleared that up, hopefully, Chris. Paul Moran says, a bit like Perez, Darren was signed for the development squad, but was fast-tracked to the first team. Can he remember much of his debut?
Well, I actually came on that Arsenal game, and I don't know if you can get video clips, but Tony Adams actually brought me down for a penalty and we never got it.
Right.
And I just wish we'd had VAR then, because it was a penalty. So that was my debut, but obviously my first goal being the West Ham game. I came on again sub, and as I just mentioned about the genius, Peter went to the byline, cut it back, and I put it in. And I was fast. I mean, I probably, like saying I was fast-tracked, I got in the team right away, Steve. I mean, the first week I was down, I was sub, and you only had one sub then. So, like, obviously I think I'm going down, I'm going to be in the reserves and I'll play a wee bit part here and there, but I got in right away. And I mean, Wally must have thought I was good enough, even though when you look back, the picture behind you, Steve, I was probably about 9.5 stone.
Wow.
So I wasn't developed or anything, but as I say, he saw enough in my ability and my desire and commitment that I played nearly. And I think there was only one time I was injured for 4 weeks with a thigh strain in my whole time there, and there was only once I wasn't stripped, and that was against Man United at home. So I think Suggy was in charge, and he didn't, which was cool. I wasn't on the bench, but that was the only time, apart from the 4 weeks injured, that I wasn't stripped.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. You know, Perez was like that. He was brought down as a development player, you know, Jose Perez at Newcastle, and he was fast-tracked into the team straight away because Newcastle needed to, injuries, you know, and obviously they thought he was good enough, and he never really looked back. So next question, Stephen Smith says, what was your most enjoyable game for Newcastle United in your spell at the club?
Well, winning at Anfield's obviously brilliant, even though I played right back. You're going to Anfield. Highbury, we went to, it probably wasn't my best. I wouldn't say this was my best game, but we were near the relegation, Stephen. We went down midweek game to Highbury and beat Arsenal 1-0. And I mean, going to Highbury was just walking in, and like my one of my heroes was Charlie Nicholas. Charlie Nicholas was playing for Arsenal at the time. So, but God, I mean, the Swindon 5-0 game was brilliant. We beat Man United at home when Glenn Roeder scored. So listen, there's loads of games I enjoyed, but probably because that result kept us up, winning at Highbury was probably the best.
Yeah, I mean, there were so many great games. That Swindon game was fantastic. As you know, it was just one of those eras. The Blackpool night stood out for some reason.
Yeah.
Crystal Palace in the cup. You know, there's loads of particular games that stick out from that era, but that Swindon one was just a fantastic day, wasn't it?
Yeah. I was lucky enough to score that day, and probably arguably my best goal for Newcastle. So it was. We were just. Everybody was just on it, and Steve, see, when you look back and listen again, don't take it out of context, but when you talk about the class of '92, I mean, when you think that Willie played Neil McDonald, Gazza, Steva, Brian Tinnion, Bogey, Michael O'Neill, myself. Do you know what I mean? And there was obviously others in there, but he had no problem putting them in. And at the same time, there was probably 5 under-21s probably in the team at the time. But the experience we had, and again, I was lucky enough to play with Paul Goddard, who was just out of this world as a striker, a number 9, and as a guy, he was as a striker, he was just incredible. But we had the Goddards, we had Peter, we had John Anderson, we had Glenn, we had Davy Mack, Kenny Wharton, Bud and Goals. We just had an unbelievable nucleus of great experienced players, great pros, and that obviously helped the young kids with their enthusiasm. I think the older ones rubbed off on that, and that they got a buzz from the young kids running about and just putting the work in and just the desire they had.
Keith Wilkinson's got a couple of questions. He says, apart from Gazza, who was the best player that you played with at Newcastle?
It's got to be Peter. Don't get me wrong, Sarge is up there. Paul Goddard was, as I've just said, an incredible striker for the size of him. I don't think I've seen anybody as good holding the ball up in linking play for the size he was, the way he used his body, his finisher. Sarge had something like a size 5 feet. But what a player. But Peter was a genius. Peter was just incredible. Some days in training, he was just, you just had to actually stand back and just go, wow. He was incredible. And I think anybody who's a Newcastle fan, I can imagine he's up there in the top. He's up there in the top 3, 4. I know there's loads of legends and wonderful players that played, but Peter's up there, I would guess.
100%, he's my number 1, mate. And I saw him twice. I was lucky enough to see him in 83, 84 season, and then see him when he came back to the club as well. Fantastic. That promotion season in 83, 84 is one of those that was my first season as a fan. So to then follow him on until he was eventually sold. I don't know
who the goal was against, but the one he's kind of slid in at the edge of the box and lifted over lobbed the keeper.
Brighton at home, last home game of the season in the promotion season, when Keegan, Beardsley and Waddle all scored, and he just did that manoeuvre, didn't he, where he slide tackled and got back up in one manoeuvre and then just chipped Joe Corrigan. It's fantastic.
Sensational. That's talent. That's you don't see that, like, just his thought process.
Yeah,
that's what he had in there. Some other guys would just maybe try and smash it or bend it, but his thought process was just brilliant.
Yeah, and he's still like that today, even in the Pavel Cup. And it always makes me laugh whenever we have those charity games that Peter plays in. The first thing he says to whoever's managing the team that he's in is, "Don't take us off." He's still as enthusiastic as he was back in the day, which amazes me.
Listen, we all are. I've hurt my groin. I'm struggling to play now. And my hip's a little bit sore, but we all have that. We all have that desire to keep. Like when I played in games, I always wanted to score because I just get that buzzy scoring, hitting the net again. It's just, we all have that. So I can imagine, and Peter had that in abundance.
He did. Keith Wilkinson's other question. He said, "You were Michael O'Neill's best man. Do you still speak to him, and are you surprised how well he's done as a manager?"
Well, again, it's one of those questions. It's easy to say yes. I still speak to him, yes, a lot. I still speak to him all the time. We're still best pals. We were at Newcastle, Dundee United, Hibs together. So I'm not surprised, because he's a clever guy. When he came over, Steve, Michael came over, but he went to school in the afternoon. He had to finish his schooling. So he trained in the morning and he went to school in the afternoon. So he was a clever boy anyway. And academically, he was a financial advisor. So very clever in that aspect. But just on the game and the way he speaks to me about the way he did with Northern Ireland and all that, he's not one. A lot of people want to use the big words now and and complicate things. Michael doesn't complicate it. He just says it how it is and sees it how it is. But obviously, I can only see him going further. Yes, Stoke have had a couple of bad results. Got a massive game today against Barnsley, and they've moved into the bottom three. You don't know what's going to happen with Wigan, but I genuinely hope I think they will survive. But Michael will only go one way because he's excellent on the game and a very clever guy.
Steve B on Twitter asks, who was your Newcastle United unsung hero while you were playing for us? Bearing in mind all the flair players that we had, and he points out that you would probably praise Gazza. He said he loved the likes of Kenny Wharton, Peter Haddock, Imre Berardi, who was before your time, Alan Brown, Wes Saunders in that era. So who at the time when you were at the club was the unsung hero?
Well, none of them are really unsung because they were heroes. And I've just mentioned Paul Goddard, but I've got to mention Davy Mack.
Yeah,
Dave McCreary was just like I think I was telling Karen the other day that we were talking about pre-season because I've been helping a few young kids, taking them and helping them get prepared for pre-season and doing some running and all that. And I was speaking about Davy Mack. Now, Davy Mack was probably the worst I have ever seen pre-season. Long runs. I mean, he would be lapped 3 times by people. Gazza was excellent, but he'd be lapped 3 times by people and all that. But see, when the game started, Davy Mack would go and play 2 games. It was just like you look at N'Golo Kante now. That was Davy Mack, like 30 years ago. I mean, he just anticipated where the ball was. Just it didn't react when the boy's going to control it. He didn't react. He was there. He was, as soon as the boy controlled it, he was there stealing the ball. And Davy Mack just played it simple. And I'm sure if you were to ask Gazza who played a big part in Newcastle, and I would say it would be Davy Mack because Davy let him go and play, and he just did all the dirty work. And listen, Gazza worked really hard, very hard, but defensively probably wasn't fantastic. And so I would think Gazza would praise Davy Mack as well.
I was only a kid when Newcastle were promoted in 83, 84. But we did, my dad took me down to see Newcastle play Gateshead at Gateshead Stadium. And it was just after we'd been promoted. And the full squad was there. Keegan, Waddle, Beardsley, Terry McDermott and David McCreary. So like all young lads of that era, I stood outside the dressing room after the game, waiting for the players to come out to get me programme signed. My dad was waiting with us. And my dad's name is John. And on this particular occasion, Chris Waddle comes out, signs me programme. Peter Beardsley came out, signed me programme. Terry Mack came out, signed me programme. And then David McCreary comes out. And as David McCreary comes out, he goes, all right, John. And then he signs me programme. Well, I was flabbergasted because I thought, wow, David McCreary knows me dad. And it wasn't until I got back home, you know, and I was telling my mum the story that my dad goes, what? Hold on a minute. What? I know David McCreary. And I went, yeah, well, he said, hello, John. He went, oh, that's what Irishmen say when they say hello to somebody who they don't know. So my little dream was shattered there as a kid, as an 11-year-old going on 12-year-old. I thought my dad was a friend of the stars, but never mind. I did get a chance to meet David and do a bit of work with him a few years later. So I did tell him that story. Next question. Texie Smith, he says, I loved watching Darren play for Newcastle. I always had him as one of my favourite players. Please ask Darren, Gazza aside, who used to give out the banter on the field at your time at the club? And is there any particular stories that you can remember?
I can remember, but I can't reveal. Listen, Steve, like Gazza was daft. I mean, mad. I mean, really, really mad. I can remember. And I can probably say it now because it was 30 years ago, driving into the training ground with Willie McFall. And this car passed us a million miles an hour, a little Mini. And he was like that. And I didn't know. He said, that's Gazza. He says, he's not even passed his test. But I think, as I said before, about on the pitch as well, but off the pitch, because we had so many young ones, there was a great energy. And I do believe that the experienced ones rubbed off in that as well. They loved that. They loved the energy of the young kids being daft and stupid and doing things and all that. And that's what, listen, obviously we were down the bottom of the league, but I think that's what made us, helped us survive, because we did. Willie created an incredible atmosphere amongst the boys. I mean, you couldn't wait to get up in the morning to go to training. I mean, they loved football anyway, but just to get with the boys, and even like you're talking when Mirror came, Mirror was just brilliant. I mean, he was a superstar, Steve. Newcastle signing Mirandinha, and the only problem is we did need 2 balls for him in Gazza. I mean, I've never known anything like it, and they probably didn't really get on with each other on the pitch, because they both wanted to be on the ball. But off the pitch, they just loved each other, because they knew that they were, as I say, they were both geniuses. But can you remember the game at home? It was a midweek game where Gazza drove forward and gave it to Mirror, and he wanted a 1-2, and Mirror goes and has his usual 50-yard shot, and Gazza said something to him, and he's run by, and Gazza's just ran back to the halfway line, turned round, and Mirror was standing there, and he just slapped him. And we were thinking it's going to kick off, but as I say, off the pitch, they loved each other. They were brilliant, and even like obviously Gazza teaching Mirror the words that you shouldn't be using. But again, he was brilliant as well. He was great to play alongside, and as I said, he was a star.
I got a couple of people telling their own stories. CCI Commentaries on Twitter says, Darren was a great character. I remember him winding my mate up when we were ball boys. He picked him up against the wall and just dropped him. Just banter. He said, but he probably would have been sacked in this day and age for doing something like that.
That's true.
Mark Richardson says, 1985-ish versus Man City at home. Darren swinging them in from the right. We're 1-3-1 if the memory serves us right. I was only 10 or so, but it was a fantastic memory. I was in the Gallagher right at the front where the first aiders were, and you could get onto the pitch. It was class.
Well, I actually wasn't playing. I was in that. I'd just signed, and I was down for that game because I had to go back to Scotland.
Right.
So I was just down for that game, and I think Gazza scored. I think Tony Cunningham scored.
Yeah.
But that was my first, and just amazing. And even Man City then had good players.
Yeah, exactly. Jordino Devo says, what were the differences going from part-time to professional with Newcastle when you came?
How long have we got, Steve? I mean, going from Meadowbank, playing in front of 200 people around a running stadium, to 35,000 mad football fans, Geordies, and 10,000. There used to be 5,000 locked outside. They want to try and get in. So, I mean, expectation, like it's hard to really. It's a hard question to answer because everything changed. I was part-time. I worked as a printer. Luckily, where I worked, Meadowbank was right across the road, so I used to work overtime and then go over to train 2 nights a week. But then you're training every single day, and like as I say, expectations to, and I've mentioned a few times, we were near the bottom of the league, to keep a club like Newcastle in the league. So the demands were on you, were incredible, but that's why you're in the game. That's why you want to play. Like people who don't want to, well, I'm not saying anybody wouldn't want to go to big clubs or who can't handle it. That's why you're in the game, because you want that pressure. You want that pressure every single week, and like the pressure of Newcastle going and winning a trophy. It's like a team, obviously up here, who I played for, Hibs, hadn't won a cup for 114 years, I think it was. Those boys will be legends who won it, legends for forever. And I just wish something like that could happen with Newcastle.
One day, mate. One day. I sent you a photograph last night of you in Gazza, which the account Toon Poles sent in. So can you give them a shout out, mate? Because he really enjoyed meeting you, he says, when he was a kid.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant picture. Karen and I were laughing last night when it came in. I sent it to a couple of my pals. And just an amazing picture. I can say that I started the hanky in the wee lapel of your jacket. So it was great, and the good one in Gaza. He's looking great. He's looking brilliant in the picture and all that. So it's always nice. Listen, it's always nice to look back in pictures from years ago, and you get a wee laugh, or look what you've got on and all that. But at the time, it was probably fashionable. But brilliant picture. So thank you very much.
Alan Morton is a Rangers fan. He's saying, could you tell from an early age that Gazza was a special talent, Darren?
Yeah, I've just spoke to you about for the first game where the team talk was about Gazza, and I just thought to myself, and I mean, I tell everybody, Steve, you get asked the question. Footballers always get asked, who's the best player you've played with, and who's the best player you've played against, and he's both. Yeah. I mean, I was lucky enough, very lucky, to play against Brazil in the World Cup, but Gazza was just, and I do believe if he hadn't got his injuries, he would have been the best player in the world. Mm. There's no doubt about it, because he went to Italian United and he was the best player in the world. In that tournament, Gazza was the best player. Yeah. And I mean, obviously he got his injury in the cup final, and then I think he fell down the stairs and was at Walkers. And he did his kneecap, and I do honestly believe if he hadn't, he was a genius, a complete genius. And being a Rangers fan, he must have just loved watching him every week. Yeah, they had Laudrup as well, but Gazza was just a star for Rangers.
Yeah, here. Dave Watson says, favourite non-NUFC career moment, signing for Hearts or stopping Rangers 10 in a row?
I've got to say, and I apologise to the stopping 10 in a row. Yeah, it was a great achievement. Again, Steve, you're talking about pressure. That was pressure, because that was history of a club. And we lost our first two games against Hibs and Dunfermline, and you're thinking to yourself, God almighty, this is going to be hard, and the fans were beginning to panic after two games, but thankfully in the end it all worked out.
Dave Watson also asked, who is the most difficult opponent you played against? You mentioned Gazza, so it's other than Gazza, and who is the best teammate that you played with in your career, not necessarily Newcastle? You mentioned Gazza and Beardsley, so is there anybody else?
Listen up. At the national level, I played with Gary McAllister, Paul McStay, played with Henrik Larsson, Lubo Moravcik. I mean, wonderful players, incredible players. I mean, Lubo again was, I mean, that's I picked my all-time team that I played with, and the front four are Gazza, Lubo, Beardsley, and Henrik. It's not a bad four, with McStay and McAllister behind them. So I was very lucky, Steve, to play with some really, really gifted players. And I say this and get criticised sometimes. I was lucky because I wasn't nearly as talented as those boys. I mean, they were stars. So I've played with a lot, and it's you don't really want to pick out one or two, because then you miss out two or three or four that were very close to being the same kind of players. So I could go on and mention loads of players that I was just lucky.
Let's move on to Newcastle United nowadays, and I know you do manage to catch a few of the games, and Project Restart is always going to be difficult for everybody, because it's a longer layoff than a pre-season. But Newcastle have come back and really really set their stall out, and they're on a nice unbeaten run if you don't count the FA Cup.
Brilliant, fantastic. And as you say, you never know what's going to happen. Obviously, the boys nowadays are so professional, have looked after themselves, but it's not just about keeping fit, it's that sharpness and just getting front in games. I mean, Sheffield United, who have done exceptionally well, obviously they're a great result against Tottenham, but lost a couple before that, but Newcastle were just on them. Everything was kind of going, and I'm so happy for Steve Bruce. I mean, like everyone, the pressure because the club could be getting bought over, or who's Pochettino's coming in, or this one's coming in, or that one's coming in, and it must be hot. Like Steve is old enough now; he'll probably not even read it, but he hears things, and he can only listen. All he can do is just keep winning games, and hopefully, when the new owners do come in, they say to themselves, "Yes, we're going to give him a chance. We're going to give him X amount of money to go and see what he can do," and I hope they do. Can do that. But they've really come back with a real grit and determination. Now, at times, it's no brilliant football, but there does look to see that there's a desire in there to do well. I mean, Dwight Gale coming back and getting a goal. He's a goal scorer. He just needs that wee bit of a run in the team. And as a striker, it's great to come into a team that's winning, because when you come into a team that's losing, you're not creating a lot of chances. I mean, Almiron, the wee guy needed a goal, but plays with a smile on his face, and he's obviously a good player, and he was really struggling. Sorry, for a while there, but just needed a goal. You know what I mean? And that just breeds confidence, and you get a wee bit luck with the Bournemouth mistake, but then they've got to take it on, and they did take it on. So it's great to see. Sorry. So it's brilliant to see.
Yeah, I mean it's been an interesting time in the world, never mind football. And to complicate matters, Newcastle United, as you've alluded to, with Steve Bruce's position, are subject to a potential takeover, which could see them become the richest team, not just in the UK but in the world. Does Steve Bruce deserve a chance, do you think, as a manager, if the new owners come in? Because when we see new owners come in, they tend to change the head coach manager straight away.
100%, Steve. Why not? Why does it have to be someone? And listen, the ones that get mentioned are top managers, but so is Steve Bruce. He's had a few teams now. Fans, there'll be some fans, because he managed Sunderland, I'll be like, no, maybe get him out or that. But he knows. Everybody knows where his heart lies. He was a Newcastle one. Never, like, I played for Hibs. My dad was a mad Hearts fan, but at the time, that's who came in for me. So I had to go. It's the same with Steve. That was the job that was there. So he took it. But everybody knows that he'll be given everything, because he's a fan like anyone sitting in a seat in the stand. Steve Bruce is a fan of Newcastle, and I think sometimes to give someone like that a chance, go and see if they can do it. They've got all the money, and I don't mean go and waste if it doesn't work, or we'll just go and buy other players. But why not give Steve Bruce a chance and to see if he can do it? He's done well with what he's had just now, and he spent a little bit of money. But look where they are in the league. So if he can go that next level, or maybe the next two levels, to see what kind of player they can get to Newcastle. The only thing I would say, Steve, and I think it's been the same all throughout for years, it's getting the big boys up to Newcastle. Now, if you pay them well, they might come, but sometimes it's maybe the wives and the girlfriend. They all want to go to the big cities. They want to go to London, they want to go to Paris, they want to go to Rome, they want to go to Madrid, Barcelona. You know what I mean? It's that's where it's going to be hard, but you can still get boys that wants to turn up at Newcastle. I think players who don't probably know, like the Almirons and that, coming, they'll be blown away. They will be blown away by playing for Newcastle.
Joe Linton struggled as the number 9 at Newcastle. What advice would you give to Joe Linton? is it the pressure at the top, do you think, the number 9? I mean, after all those great legends playing in it?
Well, I don't know if will he really get that. I mean, for me to give a £40 million player advice is quite hard. But you've just got to keep going in there, because just now, and it's the best time just now, because they're scoring goals now, they're making chances. So just keep going in there, and he obviously got himself a goal, and you just hopefully that's just an effect that he's happier in his head. He feels more confident. I'm sure he'll be getting that from the staff and the manager and the players. But just keep getting in there, because strikers miss goals. I mean, you'll have watched him his whole career at Newcastle, and he was a superstar, Alan Shearer. But you'll have seen Shearer miss a lot of chances. But did it bother him? No, because he just goes on, because I know I'll get another one. And I'll score that. And then misses another one. I know I'll get another chance and scores that. So you just got to take away the getting all hit up inside by missing a chance. Just try and forget it, but just keep getting yourself in the box, and the chances will come.
Since you retired, you've been an agent. You've gone into coaching. What have you enjoyed the most since you retired from football? And is there any ambition to get back into that side of things?
I think it's got to be coaching, Steve. I was lucky. We had a good time at Dun United. I had a real good time with Gary Look at Wraith Rovers. I had an unfortunate time with Alan Stubbs at St Mirren, where there was only 4 games. But the love for the game will always be there. I mean, I scout for Blackpool with Tommy Johnson. So I'm watching a lot of games just now on video, obviously. But I go to games when before the lockdown. And I'll always have the passion for football. It's in your blood. It's what you love. It's what I was meant to do. So I don't know if I'll ever get a chance again, but I'm enjoying the scouting, and that's good. Good
stuff. I want to touch on your international career as well. You know, Darren, it's one of those things when players leave the club, you don't tend to look at things unless you're doing something like this and you're doing your research. But you know, you did well. You were selected for Scotland squads, and you know, you must have had a great time. Must have been an immensely proud moment for you to pull on the blue jersey.
Brilliant. I didn't get my first cap till I was 28, so it was probably, well, it is late in career for a lot of people. But again, I was probably too inconsistent, and then obviously you grow up a little bit more and the consistency is a lot better, so you get selected. And I went to Euro 96 in France 98, and it was just, I never played at Euro 96, but obviously playing against England at Wembley, where Gazza scored the wonder goal, was just, it was amazing. And as I said, Steve, like, again, and I'm not going on, and I don't like, the squad I played in, I was lucky. Do you know what I mean? The Colin Henrys, Tom Boyds, Colin Calderwoods, Andy Gorham, Jim Leighton, McStays, McAllister, McCalls, McCoy, Jury, Kevin Gallagher. Do you know what I mean? Just incredible players, international players. So I got in, and it was great. I was lucky enough to be selected for the opening game against Brazil at France 98, and that's something that I'll never be taken away, and it was special. Unfortunately, we lost the game, and unfortunately, we've never been back to a World Cup or a European Championship. So it's quite sad that it's 22 years since we've not been to a tournament. So, but I'm very proud of what I achieved. I didn't think I'd maybe get one cap, so to get 28 was brilliant.
Couple of football issues, you know, not regarding Newcastle. VAR, you mentioned it earlier. You know, have they rushed this a little bit? We've seen another controversial decision with Tottenham the other night. I'm not sure whether you saw it, where there was a supposed handball. Jose Mourinho wasn't very happy, and you know, the replays on Match of the Day and subsequent other programs proved that it wasn't. You know, it should never have been given. But you know, what's your view on VAR?
Steve, that was the worst decision I have ever seen in my life. The boy's fouled. He's facing the other way. You've got to put your hand down to try and protect yourself. And the boy boy's a yard away from him, smashes the ball against him. Now, I don't even know if it hit his arm, and goes to Harry Kane, and it's chalked off. It was mind-blowing. I just could not believe. And I know Mourinho's a bit controversial, and sometimes he's a little bit much. but he was 100% what he said. He said, when he said, "Have you had a word with the referee?" He said, "I can't, because he's in an office somewhere in St George's," and that's true. The referee's not there. The referee's no refereeing the game. It was absolutely incredible. Now I do agree with goal line technology, because like if a goal's a goal, like, and I know the one that Aston Villa and Sheffield United, that was probably just a one-off issue that they just didn't catch it properly. But I go with the goal line technology. But the VAR, listen, I was the world's worst moaning at referees. But there's got to be mistakes in the game, because everything just can't be 100% correct. Now I think if you were to ask, even Chris Wilder said, if you were to ask any footballer or any manager, I think they would say that is probably the worst decision they've ever seen. It was incredible. I mean, the boy's fallen. The boy's a yard smashed it off him. Handball. I mean, they talk about it's got to be deliberate. I mean, to the letter of the law, that shouldn't even be the letter of the law. It's hit your hand. It was the same with Man City Liverpool. Did you see that one when Foden fell and it just totally brushed his arm, and Mahrez went in and scored. Now that was a goal. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? That's no deliberate handball. Yeah. So I think they've got a lot of. I mean, they're always going to have problems, because if it's for you, it's fine. But there's always going to be. You're always going to get against you at some point. So I think there has to be mistakes in the game. But obviously, you're hoping referees can. And it's harder because you can sit in a studio, Steve, and there could be. Say there could be Gary Lineker, Alan Shearer, and Ian Wright sitting in a studio, and an incident happens, and there's maybe 20 cameras around the stadium, and they still can't decide if it was a foul or it was a penalty in the studio. So the referee's got a split decision to make. I'm giving a penalty or I'm not giving a penalty. So you see how hard it is. And yes, do they need a hand? Probably because of the pace of the game nowadays. But there's got to be mistakes, and that was for me, that was the biggest one.
We've seen this week Wigan going into administration, which is bizarre after only 4 weeks. When you start to look into the actual fit and proper person test, it seems a little bit bizarre. The EFL need a little bit of coaching on what to do, maybe from Richard Masters on that. But does it worry you the amount of teams that might go into administration with this COVID lockdown?
I think you've got to worry, Steve, for football. I mean, it's going to take a little while, and yes, there's talk, obviously, Newcastle, the people that are coming in have got more money than you could ever wish for. But a lot of teams, I mean, up here in Scotland, it's going to be a real struggle for, I would think, if teams do survive for a few years before we can probably get back to, and that we don't spend fortunes. Rangers and Celtic. Possibly, Celtic spent 9 million on Edouard. Now he's a star. He's going to be a top player. But Celtic would never pay over that, because up here in Scotland they can't pay over that, because the wages, Steve, you can't go and spend £20 million, because a boy at £20 million probably wants 50 grand a week, and up here we can't afford to pay. Even the Celtic and Rangers could never afford to pay that. So, and it's obviously going to get a lot tighter now. But yes, the answer to the question, I do worry for a lot of teams, but hopefully down England with the PFA, hopefully they can help them out, and because it doesn't matter if it's a big team or a small team, you don't want anyone. Like, it looks very strange what's happened with Wigan, and it's sad, because the boy Paul Cook had been doing really well and got them on a fantastic run. And then this comes out, it must be a blow to everybody there.
100%. We'll give the last question to Mick on Twitter. He says, who did Darren used to room with at Newcastle?
Dave Besant.
Dave Besant.
Well, that was obviously I roomed with Gazza a couple of times, Michael. But then when Dave came, he was my roommate, and I still keep in touch with him. He was just a magic guy. Brilliant boy. And we used to have good laughs. I mean, could probably tell you a couple of, well, I probably couldn't tell you a couple of stories with Gazza in rooms and putting beds up against doors so people couldn't get out and all that, and you've got a massive game playing at Arsenal the next day, and you're just thinking, but that was just young and enthusiastic, and that was just him. And but Dave Besson was brilliant roommate.
Did you manage to sample the hostilleries, the nightclubs, the bars, Darren, when you were in Newcastle, or were you a sensible lad?
Well, this is an honest truth. I used to go up the road nearly every Saturday night, and like at the time we used to get the train down to London to play when we played London. So I just stayed in the train when we got to Newcastle. I just stayed in the train right up to Scotland. But of course, and this, I'll tell you a true story that, and it was a wake up call that we had a night out midweek, and we were in Walkers, and I've never been a big drinker, Steve, but I'd had a couple, and I remember Peter coming over to me, and I was joking about and having a laugh with the boys and all that, and I probably wasn't that long there, and as I said, didn't have too much, but I'd had a couple, and Peter came up and he just said, do you want to be a football player or a pop star? And I just went, okay then. And it was kind of a wake-up call, because obviously Peter didn't drink, but he was here, and he enjoyed the banter with the boys and all that. But it was a kind of, listen, if you want to make it here, you've got to be sensible as well. So it was good. I remember that it was yesterday, and that was from in 1986. But it was just an old pro just deflating a young kid who was maybe getting carried away.
Oh, fair play to him. Peter was the ultimate professional. Like his chocolate though, Peter, of course.
Oh yeah. A Barry Dairy Milk before every game. He used to sit in the dressing room and a Barry Dairy Milk before every game.
Yeah, good stuff. Listen, Darren, I could speak to you all day. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. I just would like you to, if you've got any final words for the Newcastle fans who watch this today, who remember you from that great period in your career.
Listen, all I can say is thank you for the support. I felt when I came down, because Newcastle and Scotland are quite close, there was an affiliation there, and I could speak to Robbo and a lot of the Archie Gourley and a lot of the Scottish boys that were down, and they just felt at home. You just felt like a Geordie, and the welcome I got and the way I was treated the whole time I was down there, and even when I was down last year, people coming up, it's a magical, and like, I'm not saying this, and Steve, I don't have to say it to you, I'm not saying this because I want fans to, it's a magical club. There's not a lot like them, like the bigger, like the Liverpools and Man United are magical clubs as well, and they've had success. And sometimes, I'm not saying people support Man United and Liverpool because of success, because they're great clubs, but it's easier when you've got success. But they just, I mean, if you, like I said when I was down the Cairn, if you put another 2 tiers on, they would fill it, because their life is just football, drinking, women, in that order. and it's true. It's absolutely true. And I just wish they could get a good run and get a cup, and they deserve anything Newcastle fans get, they deserve, because they're just the most loyal fans, I think, around.
Great stuff, mate. Listen, it's been an absolute pleasure. I hope you and the family stay safe, and look forward to seeing you back at St James's Park very soon.
Brilliant, Steve. Thank you very much.
Take care, mate. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.